fall anywhere. So that should definitely help her transition into things in the ring. But, I mean, you see it with Shayna Baszler, too. I mean, her facial expressions, her selling ability, it's just, to me, it's just not there. And I think maybe we're putting the cart before the horse here, but did you get a chance to see Ember Moon versus Shayna Baszler this week on NXT?
No, not yet.
All right, yeah, you don't have to. So we can, to me, I don't know if it's because in professional wrestling it's give and take, right? Like you have to be able to give your body up and kind of put yourself in your opponent's hands. And I think in MMA it's the opposite. You're more guarded, so maybe that's why they can't. These two can't sell as well, or I don't know what it is, but there have been plenty of people that have transitioned from MMA, to professional wrestling. I mean, Dan Severn, Ken Shamrock. Even guys like Tom Lawler and Seth Petrozelli, those guys were MMA fighters for a very long time, and they're doing a lot of good work on the indies in Florida and stuff like that. So I don't know. I mean, it's and now I'm reading. Did you see a front page of MSN, by the way, roughly 5 minutes ago? Rob Gronkowski has a deal on the table from WWE. Should he retire from the NFL? Did you hear about this?
Yeah, I heard that they were interested, or I don't know how far any sort of conversations have gotten. I heard that I guess they were interested in utilizing him if he should retire from football. He of course made an appearance at last year's WrestleMania, jumping the guardrail during the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Again, with somebody like him, his personality probably would bring a lot of eyes to the product. I don't know how serious he is about retiring from football, but I'm sure that they're interested in talking to him and bringing him in to do something if he were to retire from football. And, it would get them even more mainstream attention, right? So that's probably what they're looking at.
How much more mainstream do you think Vince is looking to go? Like, to WWE and UFC, wouldn't you think that the WWE is more mainstream than the UFC is at this point?
I mean, I guess I don't know. It's hard to judge now, especially with the WWE not doing pay-per-view numbers really anymore. So it's hard to compare and things like that. I would assume WWE is a little bit more mainstream just from the PG nature of it and the charity stuff that they do and all these organizations that they work with, and just having a lot more weekly hours of television. So I think that it's more available to people than MMA, but it's crossover stuff, right? I mean, if they sign Rob Gronkowski to do something, then maybe a lot of NFL fans come in and check out, WrestleMania or something that he does, right? They sign Ronda Rousey, and people that used to watch MMA or UFC will turn to watch Ronda Rousey. I mean, heck, they signed Mahabali Shera in the last week, and I thought he was like terrible in the ring, but they signed him probably because they want to continue to branch out into other countries.
Wait, hold on. What?
Yeah, you don't. Come on, man. Get in the game. Mahabali Shera, man. Come on. That's big news.
The dude from Impact?
Yeah.
WWE. What? I didn't hear that. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Let's get weird with it. Yeah. See, the thing is, I feel like I think CM Punk going to the UFC did more for the UFC than any UFC fighter coming to WWE will ever do. True or false?
CM Punk going to UFC will do more than any UFC fighter coming to WWE.
Yeah, for each respective,
Yeah, I mean, probably. I mean, I assume Lesnar had the same impact when he left, right, and started doing UFC stuff. It crossed over and got maybe some wrestling fans to follow him with UFC, right? So I would guess
the only thing I would say about Lesnar, though, is he fought previous to fighting in the UFC. So I think with CM Punk, like, it truly was like, why, can this guy do anything? I mean, Brock, you saw him maul some poor dude in Strikeforce in California. But with CM Punk, it was just like, who can he really fight,
Yeah, I mean, given that he had no experience with doing it before. But, I guess we'll see. I mean, they're just trying to, get more eyes on the product, and I'm sure they want more network subscriptions, and they want people to check stuff out. And there's probably going to be a way. It's like, well, the only way you can watch WrestleMania and Ronda Rousey if you subscribe to the network, and they want to keep people invested that way. And that's more of their business model now than it was in the past when it was just trying to get pay-per-view buys and ratings for Raw and SmackDown, right? So I guess at the end of the day, it's just a matter of does it move the needle at all for the company and get more eyes on the product and sell more T-shirts and more fans and stuff like that. So,
Are
it's
you
just getting
alienating?
started.
Are you alienating the women in the WWE Women's Division by what they're doing with Ronda Rousey? I mean, I'm sure you saw the backlash after Royal Rumble. I mean, Medusa, Brie Bella, Nia Jax. There were a bunch of other women that were just, I mean, livid pretty much on Twitter. That Ronda Rousey was like, oh, I forget what the quote was. It was like Ronda Rousey gives her opinion on the historic women's 30 women over the top battle, Royal Rumble, blah blah blah. And they were like, well, she wasn't even in the match, and then all of these women that were in the match were very upset about it. So do you think it's going to hurt the locker room morale at that point?
I mean, maybe a little. I mean, but I guess that's really more on the company than it is, on anything else, right? I mean, they make the decision on how to book her and how to introduce her, and then, I'm sure they set up, interviews with her after the show. I mean, I saw one myself from ESPN was covering it, and they had somebody there at the Rumble, and they interviewed Rousey after the show, and I think that's probably on the company itself to, I don't know how much information they share with the talent, if they knew she was coming in at all or how she was going to debut. Perhaps they weren't aware of any or all of it. And, it just kind of maybe it bothers them a little bit, which, I mean, I understand, somebody comes in from the outside with name value and no experience, and they're treated a little bit differently, right? They're kind of behind the 8 ball. They haven't paid their dues yet. So, I mean, that stuff happens. But I guess I think that's just more maybe it's the company's fault for how they brought her in and whatever level of communication they have internally about stuff like that.
Well, I guess only time will tell, but if what would they say that they're expecting maybe to be The Rock and her versus Stephanie and Triple H at WrestleMania? That was the last I heard a couple months ago. I don't know if that's still the case though.
Yeah, I mean, all I've heard really is that they're trying to get The Rock for it. I don't know what his movie schedule is or his level of interest or anything like that. So I guess their first choice is to have Rock come in and do it. There's some other names that were floated as potential ideas for being her partner, whether that was I think Kurt Angle was a choice, which I don't think that would work out particularly well. And Braun Strowman was another option I've heard. So I don't know if they really don't know, or they're still just trying to work on some things and what their fallback plans are. But that's the latest that I've heard of the last week or two.
I mean, you figure, when's WrestleMania? April 4th, 5th?
I think it's the 8th of April.
April 8th. So you kind of have you have less than 2 months to, work into a story. But with the amount of TV they have going on, I'm sure they could figure something out. So I just listen. You want to put on WrestleMania? That's fine. Just don't make it the main event, and I'll be happy. I have another question for you, as my voice cracks like a 7-year-old. Did you watched Monday Night Raw this week for the most part?
Yes.
Where do you stand on John Cena currently?
Where do I stand on John Cena? I think he, he's a part-timer now, and so they're just kind of using him in different spots. But it seems like he's primarily there for his name value and to, more often than not, probably just put people over in certain situations, depending on who they want to put over. So I guess that's my stance on Cena. They're portraying him as a veteran, right? And a guy that's been there for a long time. And, they've acknowledged essentially that he is part-time, even though he's not leaving the company at any point in the near future. So I guess that's just my stance on him as far as what his role is. I don't know what the plans are for him going into Mania, if they have any at this moment, or what they're thinking. But I guess that's where I stand on Cena. Did you have some thoughts on him specifically that you wanted to go over?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like the amount of TV time that this guy is getting. I mean, he beat Finn Balor clean. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, that was in the qualifying match for the Chamber, right?
Right, beating Finn Balor clean and stuff like that. I mean, I understand they're relying heavily on Cena because there's a lot of injuries going on Raw and a lot of spots are popping up and there's some extra time, but And Cena's gonna do what Cena does, and he's gonna give you the same kind of John Cena match. But I just feel like that time could be going to other people. Yeah, like opening the show again. I don't know. I'm souring on John Cena, and I sure as hell don't see him winning the Elimination Chamber. Do you think that's still going to be a Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar WrestleMania match?
Yeah, I do. Um, I don't. I just think that that's been their plan for a long time, and I don't think they're going to waver off that. Whether they add somebody else to it, I guess that's an option. But I would right now, I'm going to, I'd pencil that in for WrestleMania and the Universal title right now.
And I think that's kind of what everybody expects. So I'm hoping at the Elimination Chamber, which is about a week and a half from now, I'm really hoping we get some sort of swerve, if you will, some sort of different finish than just Roman Reigns going over clean. I feel like there's a lot of talent on Raw, and I feel like it's a little disjointed. You have a couple of guys that you see in and out each week, and then like Seth Rollins. I will say they had a very good finish to the match this week with a little bit of Seth Rollins and Finn Balor getting a double pin. I think that definitely adds some intrigue to next week. But I mean, you're toying with the broken Matt Hardy and the Bray Wyatt thing, then you're kind of pulling back on it, and you're not really focusing too much time on that. I think Raw is kind of all over the place, and I think it's partially due to injury. But I mean, it's there's no continuity to it, and I don't know. I find myself enjoying some of the matches. I feel like some of the matches are getting, more time, but I just feel like building towards the Elimination Chamber. Well, I mean, the Chamber's kind of, would you call it a filler pay-per-view? I mean, you have the Elimination Chamber matches, then you have like the mid-card matches that don't really mean, I guess, a whole lot going towards WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean any show that's not one of the big five, I would say, is kind of like it's an off pay-per-view, and if they don't do their job or a good job of building up longer term angles to those shows, then you're just going to have a bunch of matches that are kind of thrown together over the course of a few weeks and multi-person matches. So I think that's what we're going to be getting at Elimination Chamber. There's seven guys in the chamber, I guess now. And I don't know if I guess they're going to start with 3 and then have the 4 pods. I don't know. So I mean, a lot of the guys are going to be involved in that match. That match itself will probably be almost 45 minutes or something. And so they'll take up a lot of the roster, and I don't know what they'll do on the undercard. Maybe they'll do Hardy and Wyatt, or I don't really know. I don't even think I'm assuming there's not even going to be a cruiserweight match because the tournament is ending at WrestleMania. As far as what I heard, what was his name? Drake Maverick.
Johnny America? Yeah, Drake Maverick. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. As far as what he has informed us of on 205 Live. So, I don't know what I'm assuming they're going to have some women's matches, and they'll mix, some tag team matches in. But, it's really it seems it's just basically just a one match show at this stage.
Speaking of 205 Live, have you been watching since the Triple H hostile takeover of the show?
Yeah. So it came out like a week or two ago, right? That at least according to the internets, Triple H has taken over the production of 205 Live, and Vince McMahon's no longer overseeing it, or at least not closely. And as soon as that happened, it was around the same time that Enzo Amore was released from the company and the Cruiserweight title was vacated. So they introduced the former Rockstar Spud as the general manager of SmackDown. General manager of 205 Live.
And Drake Maverick, bro.
The former Rockstar Spud. And they announced the 16-man tournament, and they've been having, I think, about 2 matches a week, in the tournament, and giving the matches longer, more time, and kind of profiling the wrestlers a little bit better, similar to how the Cruiserweight Classic was done. And it just seems like it's a more focused product, and you have all these Cruiserweight guys and some guys that you don't expect in the tournament, like Roderick Strong and Mark Andrews and guys like that are involved now. And even though they're kind of still wrestling in front of a tired out crowd because it takes place after the SmackDown